The cold night air crackled with tension. Blue and red lights painted the cracked pavement of the roadside. 3 patrol cars boxed in a sleek black SUV just outside a quiet diner off I-70 in Kansas. A tall black man stood with his hands raised, coat unzipped, badge not visible, eyes calm, too calm. "Step out of the vehicle now," barked Officer Tully, his hand on the holster, lips curled in disdain. The man stepped forward, slow and composed. His tailored coat flapped gently in the wind. The night was quiet, too quiet, as 2 more officers circled him, fingers twitching, eyes narrowed. "I said down on your knees," another shouted, already snapping gloves over his hands. No one asked for ID. No one gave him a chance. One officer grabbed the man's phone. "Let's see who you're really texting," he muttered. The tall man didn't flinch. They didn't know who they were dealing with. But they were about to find out. And 6 minutes later, the cuffs came off. Apologies flew like bullets. One officer was on his knees. But by then, it was too late. If this intro has you locked in, hit that like button to support stories that expose truth and power. Subscribe for more cinematic drama, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and comment where you're watching from. We're building a global family that sees through the lies. Backhand index pointing down. His name was Caleb Monroe, Director of Counterintelligence for the FBI. One of the youngest ever to hold the position. A man who'd cracked billion-dollar espionage cases and sat across from senators with classified briefings in his palm. But tonight, he was just another black man driving through a small town. No driver. No flashing motorcade. Just him, and silence. Caleb had landed in Missouri for an unannounced investigation, a corruption tip from a whistleblower. The town of Oak Ridge wasn't on any major map, but someone there was selling sealed records to the wrong people. He'd come in quiet. Low profile. No backup. That's how he operated when things were especially dirty. But someone noticed his car. Someone called it in. Suspicious black male in a government SUV. That's all it took. Earlier that day, Caleb had met his informant, a local paralegal named Leah Knox, who worked for the county prosecutor's office. She'd uncovered tampered case files, buried evidence, and dozens of dropped charges, cases involving one officer's name again and again. Sergeant Dave Tully. He was known in town. Feared, even. Not just for his reputation on the streets, but for who protected him, his cousin, the district attorney. When Leah handed Caleb a flash drive and whispered, "Be careful, they know you're here," he didn't brush it off. He never did. That's why he was watching his mirrors when the first cruiser pulled in behind him that night. He'd only been parked 2 minutes. Grabbing a coffee. Then, lights. Sirens. And voices that barked commands before questions. Tully stepped out of his cruiser with a swagger. He was big, red-faced, and loud. "License and registration," he shouted, even though Caleb's hands were visible on the wheel. His FBI badge was on the dash. But no one looked. Another officer yanked the door open. "Out. Now." Caleb stepped out, coat open, no sudden moves. "I'm a federal officer," he said, voice firm. But they didn't care. "You think you're better than us?" one sneered, pushing him against the hood. Caleb didn't resist. He didn't need to. Because everything was being recorded, from his body cam, to the hidden dash cam, to the signal he sent to the FBI's internal emergency system the second the stop turned hostile. They cuffed him anyway. One officer laughed. "Bet this one thinks he's in D.C. or something. Ain't no deep state here, boy." Then came the insult that would echo around the world. Tully stepped in close and whispered, "You don't belong here. Bet if I offered you a deal, you'd shut up fast." Caleb turned his head slowly. "Is that an offer?" Tully smirked. "Say, $5,000. You walk away. Pretend this didn't happen. This car might go missing otherwise." And that's when Caleb spoke clearly, deliberately. "I suggest you call your supervisor and your mayor." "No." Tully snorted. "Or what?" Caleb said nothing. But behind the scenes, the FBI's Rapid Response Task Force had already triangulated his location. Exactly 6 minutes after Caleb was cuffed, the screech of black Suburbans shattered the night. Out stepped Deputy Director Herrera, flanked by federal agents in tactical gear. A tall woman in a navy coat pointed at Caleb. "Uncuff him." "No." Officers froze. Tully went pale. The agent turned to him. "Do you know who that man is?" Silence. "That's Director Caleb Monroe of the Federal Bureau of Investigation." One officer dropped the keys. Another stepped back, stammering. Tully's mouth hung open. Caleb rubbed his wrists as the cuffs came off. He stared straight at Tully. "You said $5,000 to make this disappear?" Tully shook his head, sweating. "Sir, it was just a joke." Caleb leaned in close. "That was extortion. On record. Congratulations." That's when Tully's knees gave out. The next day, national headlines exploded. FBI director profiled, threatened by local PD. Bodycam footage confirms abuse, extortion attempt. Federal investigation launched into Oak Ridge Police. But Caleb knew this wasn't just about one cop or one stop. When his team searched the drive Leah gave him, they uncovered something worse. A secret transfer of forfeited assets. Dozens of tampered arrest records. And sealed settlements tied to victims, most of them black or Latino, silenced with hush money. Caleb didn't just open a case. He opened a reckoning. Rain tapped the glass of the 15th floor. Director Marshall Grant stood at the window, arms crossed, jaw tense. He wasn't just the youngest FBI director in U.S. history. He was also the first black man to ever hold the position. His phone buzzed. A message flashed. "Need a quiet pickup. Surveillance suggests Officer P. Griggs is the leak. Don't alert locals." He sighed. Internal corruption again. And this time, it was personal. Griggs was tied to Project Echo, a rogue surveillance ring targeting community activists. Grant didn't bring his full motorcade. Just a black SUV. A few agents trailing discreetly. This was supposed to be clean. Quiet. But as fate would have it, the predators weren't hiding anymore. "You don't know who you're messing with," Grant said calmly, as two officers, Griggs and Lawson, slammed the door shut. "Oh, I think I do," Griggs smirked. "Some suit in a nice car who thought the rules didn't apply." Lawson chuckled. "What kind of name is Marshall anyway?" "You a cowboy." Grant said nothing. Just watched. Watched as they tried to pressure him into silence. Watched as they mocked his ID, claiming it was fake. Watched as they demanded a donation to avoid complications. But the cameras in the room were already rolling, just not theirs. Because the moment Grant was detained, protocol kicked in. A silent alert pinged the FBI's crisis division. And Agent Myra Jansen was already inbound. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Doors swung open. Agents in tactical suits stormed the lobby. The desk sergeant stammered, You can't just walk in." Myra flashed her badge. "Step aside." "No." Back in the holding room, Griggs' phone buzzed. He looked down, then up at Grant. And for the first time, the arrogance drained from his face. "You're really him," he whispered. Grant just stared. Griggs stumbled back. "Oh my God." Lawson turned to the mirror. "We're being watched." The intercom clicked on. "Open the door." "No." Griggs sat trembling, cuffs digging into his wrists. The smirk long gone. Myra paced across from him, file in hand. 14 complaints in 7 years. Suppressed footage. Unauthorized wiretaps. And this. She threw a photo onto the table. "This is the activist you planted evidence on last year, right?" He looked down. Said nothing. "You didn't just mess with the wrong man," Myra said. "You messed with a federal investigation. You crossed a line." From behind the glass, Director Grant watched. Controlled. But inside, he was calculating. Because this wasn't just about a couple of rogue officers anymore. This was about the system that shielded them. Leaked footage. Audio clips. Griggs' voice threatening the man he thought was a nobody. Headlines exploded. FBI director racially profiled by local PD. Bodycam footage shows extortion attempt. FBI takes over internal affairs after rogue unit exposed. Social media lit up. Hashtags trended nationwide. Hashtag justice for Grant. Hashtag reform the badge. Hashtag we are watching. Protests formed outside the station by nightfall. But this time, it wasn't just anger. It was purpose. The lights dimmed. Projectors clicked on. "Myra, walk us through it," Grant ordered. She nodded. Project Echo started as an intel sharing program. But it evolved: covert facial recognition, predictive policing, unauthorized surveillance of community leaders. Run out of where? She hesitated. State-funded agencies. A few sheriff's offices. But, sir, the real link. She clicked. A document filled the screen. Senator Ronald Wexler, classified liaison brief, Project Echo. The room went silent. Grant stared at the screen. He sits on the Judiciary Committee. Myra nodded. And funds half the agencies tied to Griggs. Then this wasn't a traffic stop, Grant said slowly. It was a message. She met his eyes. And we just replied. A package sat on his desk. No name. Just a seal, Echo classified, eyes only. Inside, a flash drive. And a note. You made noise. Now finish what I couldn't. Th. He plugged it in. The screen blinked. Then loaded. Thousands of documents. Secret recordings. Interrogations. Payoffs. Surveillance logs. Even internal memos marked, "Do not archive." But one video caught his eye. It wasn't labeled. Just a date. 2 years ago. He pressed play. The screen flickered. A woman, black, mid-30s, sat in a police interrogation room. Hands cuffed. Lip bleeding. Griggs stood behind her. "You think anyone's gonna care what you say?" he spat. "We own the narrative." She looked up, dead in the lens, and said, "Not forever." Grant froze, because he recognized her. Tasha Hensley, whistleblower, reported missing, presumed dead. But if this was real, then everything was bigger than he thought. The glow of monitors lit up the darkroom. Agent Myra Jansen stood over 2 forensic analysts, eyes locked on the decrypted contents of the flash drive. "It's not just names," one analyst muttered. "This is surveillance, live feeds, call logs, encrypted blackmail folders, even GPS tracking of politicians, judges." Grant leaned in. "Wait, play that one." A video popped up. A man, State Senator Ronald Wexler, speaking in a private backroom, exchanging cash with a uniformed officer. "Keep the echo files off the Senate floor," Wexler said. "Anyone who talks disappears." Grant clenched his jaw. Wexler had been on national television just yesterday, preaching about restoring law and order. No. He was exposed. But then, another name surfaced. One that hit harder than the rest. Chief Justice Eileen Mercer. The highest-ranking black woman on the Supreme Court. And she was on the list of targets. Myra whispered, stunned. They weren't just watching threats. They were watching allies. Tasha Hensley sat in that room, bruised but unbroken. She had worked inside Project Echo for 18 months, until she tried to blow the whistle. She gave a testimony, cited names, provided files. But nothing ever came of it. Because someone buried it. Her final words on the recording. "If something happens to me, find Grant. He's the only one who won't fold." Back in present time, Grant sat still, his chest heavy. "She died trying to warn us," he said. But now, her voice was alive again. News trucks lined the courthouse. Protesters chanted in the rain. The leaked footage had gone viral. Anonymous whistleblowers were stepping forward. But so were the threats. Grant's phone rang. A distorted voice. "Walk away, Marshall, or you'll end up like Tasha. This goes deeper than you know." Click. No trace. No ID. Myra stared at him. "We need to move now, before they disappear the evidence." Grant nodded. "We're not leaking this. We're delivering it. In court." Under oath. Live. Packed gallery. Tension thick as smoke. Director Grant, in a dark navy suit, stood beside Myra. On the opposing bench, Senator Wexler and his legal team. Stone-faced. Ruthless. The judge entered. Gasps echoed as Chief Justice Eileen Mercer herself took the bench. Her presence, unshakable. Grant took the stand. State your name. Marshall Grant, Director of the FBI. And your reason for appearing? To expose an unlawful surveillance program funded by members of this government and executed by rogue officers to suppress political dissent and target civilians based on race. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Then silence. He held up the flash drive. Everything you need is on this. Wexler's attorney stood. Your Honor, we object to this evidence. It was obtained illegally. Justice Mercer leaned forward. Objection noted. Overruled. Play the footage. The room went dark. The screen lit up. Video rolled. Griggs. Lawson. Senator Wexler. Dozens of names. Proof of extortion. Surveillance. Framing innocence. And then another face appeared. One no one expected. Attorney General William Sloan. The highest law enforcement officer in the nation. This isn't just about Wexler, Myra whispered. It's everyone above him. Grant's voice cut through the courtroom. The rot goes to the top. Reporters swarmed. Protesters surged forward. Police formed barricades. And inside the building, a sealed order was passed from clerk to Justice Mercer. She read it, paused, then looked up at Grant. You are hereby ordered to hand over all ECHO-related files to the Department of Justice, effective immediately. Myra's eyes went wide. Wait, this is a shutdown. No, Grant whispered. It's a cover-up. The backup drive flickered in Agent Myra Jansen's hand. Director Marshall Grant stood over a table littered with flash drives, legal memos, coffee-stained court orders, and one envelope marked Classified, Operation Echo. This isn't just files, she whispered. This is a map. A blueprint. A hit list. They were being hunted. A ping lit up Grant's secure tablet. Incoming message. We have a contact. Inside the DOJ. Wants to meet. Tonight. Lincoln Memorial. Midnight. Come alone. Grant's fingers hovered over the keyboard. This ends tonight, he said. Rain poured. Steps glistened beneath dim golden lights. A hooded figure stood beneath Lincoln's gaze, motionless. Grant approached slowly. The figure turned. Chief Justice Eileen Mercer. Not in robes. In black. Serious. I had to disappear after that courtroom. They're coming for everyone now, she said. But I've seen the drive. I've seen everything. The surveillance, the cover-ups, even who gave the kill order for Tasha Hensley. Grant's fists tightened. Who? She looked at him, eyes full of fire and pain. Attorney General Sloan. And President Harold Wexler. Silence. Broken only by thunder. We're not fighting cops anymore, she said. We're fighting a government that's weaponized the law to protect the powerful. Across the U.S., TVs buzzed. Phones lit up. Social feeds exploded. The FBI's official YouTube channel went live. Director Grant stepped in front of a dark blue backdrop, beside Agent Myra and Justice Mercer. No music. No flag. Just facts. What you're about to see, he said, is not speculation. It is not opinion. It is truth. And it may be the last truth we are ever allowed to tell. Then he played it all. Corrupt body cam footage. Secret prison vans. Blackmail on elected officials. A signed directive from Attorney General Sloan titled Project Echo Counter-Subversive Measures. The public watched in horror. The hashtags trended instantly. Hashtag Echo Exposed, hashtag Justice for Tasha, hashtag Director Grant. Chaos. Reporters shouted. Flashes blinded. A White House rep stumbled over words. The president denies all knowledge of Project Echo. But it was too late. Congress opened an emergency session. Protesters flooded the Capitol steps. The system was eating itself from the inside. Grant walked through the empty halls, his badge clipped to his chest. Every eye on him, some filled with awe, some with fear. He entered the press chamber. Looked into the camera one last time. "If I disappear after today," he said, "don't believe the story they'll tell you. Believe this one." And he walked off. Attorney General Sloan, resigned in disgrace. President Harold Wexler, under impeachment. Project Echo, officially shut down. Tasha Hensley, honored with a federal whistleblower memorial. Director Grant, vanished. No one has seen him since. Some say he's in hiding. Some say he was silenced. Others, they say he's building something new. A force of truth. Outside the system. A figure steps into frame. Dark hoodie. Shadowed face. He places a new flash drive on the table. Label, Project, Phoenix. The screen flickers. A familiar voice. "You thought that was the end? It was only the beginning. Truth doesn't die. It burns. And when the fire starts, it spreads. Like if this story lit a fire in you." Subscribe for more stories of courage, resistance, and revelation. Share this series with someone who needs to remember what justice looks like. Comment, "Phoenix Rises," if you're ready for the next truth to be revealed. Because the next story is already being written.